Picture this, a family dinner where everyone looks fine on the outside, food is steaming, and there's a polite hum of conversation. Yet, the reality is much stickier. You can practically taste the tension. Dad's overly dramatic sighs echo through the room, while Mom fiddles with her napkin, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. Siblings share forced laughs, and you can almost hear the collective clock ticking down to an inevitable explosion. And just like that, a drink spills, or someone cracks a joke. That lands flat. All attention shifts to the chosen one, the perennial scapegoat, the unfortunate soul who wears the family's blame like a trendy t-shirt. Hey everyone, welcome to Psychologist, the corner of the internet for quiet rebels, misunderstood souls, and those who always seem to take the blame just to keep the peace. Today, we're diving into the psychology of the scapegoat, the one who absorbs everyone's chaos so the world can keep pretending it's fine. Here, we don't judge the ones who carry too much, we understand them, because sometimes, being the problem was just your way of surviving in a loud room that never listened. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from or how this topic hits you. Like, share, and let's keep unblaming ourselves together. Now let's talk about what it feels like to inhabit that role. It's not merely a fleeting sting, it lingers like an unwelcome guest, reshaping your self-image and influencing every interaction thereafter. The scapegoat becomes a punchline to a family joke you're not in on. You didn't ask to be everyone's emotional dumpster, but here you are, absorbing the silent pressure that's meant for everyone else. Wearing the scapegoat badge is exhausting, as you navigate an emotional minefield of blame, misunderstanding, and simmering resentment. Why does this happen? Why are families, those supposed sanctuaries of love and safety, so eager to designate one member as the fall guy? It's a conundrum. Families tend to develop these roles like a dysfunctional game of charades, where everyone's unspoken chaos gets diverted to a single target. Instead of confronting the hidden wounds and secrets, it's much simpler to throw them at the scapegoat and keep the status quo. And bam, you've got a system that feels painfully familiar, yet utterly suffocating. Consider the multitude of dynamics at play. Secrets about money, lingering guilt, and emotional wounds are like uninvited guests crashing the family party. Someone has to take the heat, and that someone often becomes the scapegoat. This phenomenon, known as projective identification, allows families to channel their undesirable emotions into one person. If there's anger in the air, guess who's the angry one? You got it. If inadequacy is floating around like an unwanted perfume, the scapegoat gets splashed with that label, too. Here's where it gets particularly twisted. The scapegoat is often the most sensitive family member, almost carrying a crystal ball that reflects the family's hidden truths. It's some dark cosmic joke that the person most attuned to the family's true emotions ends up with the heaviest burden. While others hide their flaws behind layers of denial, the scapegoat is there, seeing everything through a lens that's wide open. Their awareness becomes a threat, and the family turns on them in self-defense. Being the scapegoat is like being stuck in a role that feels as though it's been scripted for you. You become the living embodiment of everything your family is unwilling to face. Irony, much. While you may think you're toxic or flawed, the reality is that you are simply the mirroring surface for all the familial dysfunction. Learning to see this can be liberating. You start to disentangle your identity from their projections and realize this role was never about your worth, it was about their chaos. So, as you digest these revelations, keep an eye on those dinner tables and family gatherings. You might find that the conversations have more than just light-hearted banter lurking beneath the surface. In every awkward laugh or uncomfortable silence, there could be an unrecognized scapegoat, holding the emotional weight, and maybe, just maybe, it's time to change the script. Remember, recognizing the pattern is the first step toward breaking free of it. And who knows, it might just bring a touch of much-needed humor back to family dinners. Growing up in a family where your truth is silenced can feel like a heavy weight pressing down on you. Each critical comment lands like a ton of bricks, and even a mere glance can strike a nerve. Your achievements, instead of being celebrated, are often minimized or twisted into something unrecognizable. Over time, the internalized belief grows. Maybe I am the one causing all this chaos. That notion, sadly, doesn't just stop at childhood. It stalks you into adulthood, influencing every corner of your life. Imagine how every friendship and relationship bears the brunt of this inner turmoil. As joy creeps in, a little whisper curls around your thoughts, suggesting you don't deserve happiness. It's like being handed a party hat but feeling like a clown instead. The label problem child becomes your identity, woven into the fabric of your being as you increasingly feel like the odd one out, endlessly wrong in a world of supposed rightness. Here's where it gets juicy. You might think the scapegoat bears all the rejection, and ultimately, they do. But what if I told you they also wield a hidden power within that painful title? There's a paradox at play here. While they're the punching bag for family frustrations, they also harbor a strength that no one else in the family possesses. Dive deep into that concept, as it's a treasure hidden beneath layers of hurt that will resurface as we unravel this story. Now, let's delve into some psychology. Consider the term family homeostasis. It's a fancy way of saying that families, like any system, crave a kind of stability. Even if that stability is downright unhealthy, it feels safer than shaking things up. So, when tensions flare, instead of tackling the real issue, families often divide that stress among members, pinning it on one scapegoat. They become the pressure valve, a character written into the script simply because the family needs them to play that part. The scapegoat does not volunteer for this role, and once it's scripted, changing narratives becomes an uphill battle. The feeling of invisibility is akin to shouting into a void. Truth goes unheard, intentions misunderstood, and perfection becomes a mirage that never shields you from blame. The role isn't dictated by your actions, but rather by what the family desperately needs you to be, which can feel like an impossible tightrope to walk. Surprisingly, the scapegoat often turns out to be the healthiest player in this dysfunctional game. Why? They refuse to sugarcoat the truth, holding on to shadows that others avoid, exposing wounds that need healing. This makes them a dual figure of both victim and inadvertent healer, carrying burdens that the rest refuse to acknowledge. It is a lonely weight, yet it springs forth a latent strength that might just ignite a transformation. Here's a thought to ponder. If you've ever been that scapegoat, do you notice a pattern? The way you might find yourself falling into that same role in different aspects of life, work, friendships, or even romantic relationships. It's not just bad luck. It's because this role gets baked into your DNA, shaping your nervous system and self-worth. You may walk into new rooms, shoulders hunched and braced for blame, expecting the same old story to repeat itself. And there it lies, a silent but constant echo of the roles we never wanted, yet are somehow drawn back into. Here's where the story really stirs the pot. In family dynamics, the scapegoat often emerges as an unexpected hero, breaking cycles of dysfunction. Think about it. Pain transforms into power. The one cast out evolves into a seeker. The overlooked morphs into a truth teller. It's almost poetic that the very role that once suffocated them can ignite the flame of healing. This tale of resilience is all about flipping scripts and discovering hidden strengths. Now, let's talk about the hidden superpower that comes with being the scapegoat. These brave souls possess a unique form of awareness, like they've got the family's truth radar on overdrive. They catch the things others gloss over and feel what the rest of the crew chooses to deny. While this insight often puts a target on their backs at home, it blooms into a beautiful gift in the outside world, from artists to storytellers. Scapegoats become the empathic visionaries who can differentiate between reality and the illusions crafted around them. However, hold your horses, this metamorphosis doesn't happen overnight. Healing isn't like a magic spell, it's a journey filled with years of reflection and unlearning. Picture it as a quirky, long-term art project where you peel back layers, discovering your true self amidst all those family expectations. If you've been in this role, it's vital to remember, you aren't broken, you're not the problem, you've simply been a mirror, carrying everyone else's baggage, and now you get to decide what to do with it. Yet, wait a minute, not all families throw the scapegoat role around like a game of hot potato. Sometimes it's the oldest sibling, other times, it's the youngest or the quirky one who thinks outside the box. It can even change from day to day. Each sibling takedown reveals something deeper lurking in the family crypt, a hidden wound that craves recognition. So, one burning question remains. What if the scapegoat's role was never a fluke, but rather a choice based on the family dynamics? Consider this. Perhaps the scapegoat embodies qualities that the family simply can't face. Could it be their sensitivity that stirs up discomfort, or their rebellious spirit that challenges the status quo? Whatever it may be, the scapegoat gets stuck with the unwanted emotions. Essentially, they become the family's emotional sponge. Instead of seeing this as a form of weakness, it's actually a remarkable strength, mirroring the family's suppressed fears, painting a vivid picture of the healing they all need. This dynamic sets up a curious twist. What does being the family scapegoat do to the psyche? Having the weight of a family's shadows on your shoulders isn't for the faint of heart. It forces the scapegoat into a role where they must grapple with everyone else's demons. This struggle solidifies their resilience, but also weaves complex feelings of isolation and burden. The journey they undertake can lead to profound transformation if they choose to reflect on their experiences rather than remain stuck as a mirror to the family dysfunction. In the end, being a scapegoat is a multifaceted experience, a rollercoaster of emotions, insights, and potential. What starts as a painful label can eventually become a badge of honor. By unearthing those hidden strengths and shedding the projections, the scapegoat can pave their own path to healing, redefining their identity beyond how others might perceive them. It's an adventure worth taking, where transformation awaits on the other side of pain. Internalized blame can be a heavy cloak to wear, especially when you've grown up hearing that you're the problem. Instead of confronting that label, many people absorb it like a sponge. Suddenly, life becomes about rejecting others' rejection and building an identity as the misfit. Each harsh word feels like another brick in a wall of doubt, reinforcing the idea that they are flawed and unworthy. It's like living under a dark cloud that just won't budge. What complicates matters more is the emergence of a false self. This isn't just any mask, but a polite and overly accommodating persona that starts winning trophies for overachievement. It's all a ploy to hide the chaos and pain boiling beneath the surface. If I can just get an A on this report, whispers the false self, then maybe, just maybe, I'll belong. Little do they know, the true self is quietly suffocating, yearning for its moment to shine without any conditions attached. Now, here's the kicker. The scapegoat often gets caught in the exhausting loop of trying to earn approval from the very people who labeled them as the problem. It's like running a marathon only to find out there's always another lap awaiting you. They turn into self-improvement junkies, trying to fix, redeem, or prove themselves. However, all the effort can't change the family dynamics that were never really built on truth. They were constructed for survival. But wait, in this heartbreaking journey lies a twist: the potential for transformation. Because within that dense foliage of pain lies a hidden door waiting to be discovered. You see, the very experiences that once felt like a crushing weight can morph into the seeds of liberation. There lies the promise that when the scapegoat stumbles upon that hidden space, everything can shift, opening a realm of possibilities. As adulthood arrives, the consequences of being the scapegoat start to unfold. Research indicates that many former scapegoats grapple with boundaries, often feeling the need to over-explain or over-apologize. They linger in toxic relationships long past expiration dates, conditioned to anticipate rejection. Conversely, some retreat into fierce independence, vowing never to depend on anyone again. Both paths are survival strategies that stem from those early childhood wounds. But here's where the magic happens: awareness. When they begin to unravel their patterns, recognizing that these behaviors are not flaws, but badges of survival, sparks begin to fly. They start to see resilience in what they once viewed as weakness. Slowly, that reclaimed voice inside, once silenced, begins to yelp for joy, proclaiming its right to exist fully and unapologetically. Interestingly, while most family members remain stuck in the quicksand of denial, the golden child still chasing accolades, the peacemaker sweeping chaos under the rug, it's often the scapegoat who sets out on a path of healing. Why, you ask? Because that grappling pain forces them into self-discovery, pushing them to look for strength within. Quite ironically, it's the one who seemed outcast, the scapegoat, who rises to break the cycle, shouting, "This ends with me." They dive headfirst into psychology, therapy, and spirituality, ready to confront the family shadows that others shy away from. Imagine this: the one person everyone points fingers at, the scapegoat, ends up being the hero of their own story. That's the secret gift of that role, the transformation it spurs. If you've ever found yourself stuck in the line of fire, listen closely. The pain you felt doesn't define you. It's the strength you gain that truly matters. So let's hop into this wild journey of resilience and self-discovery. Now, back to that door that symbolizes a fresh start. The healing for the scapegoat kicks in when they realize that the blame was never theirs to own. It was just a projection from the family's survival tactics. Yes, it's messy and complicated, but once you see it for what it really is, you can step outside the confines of that role. You start questioning, who am I beyond this blame? What pushes my heart when I'm free from judgment? This journey isn't a cakewalk, folks. It's a tangled web of feelings, grief for lost time, anger over the unfairness, and confusion about your true self. But tucked within that chaos is the seed of rebirth. Being the scapegoat often leads to an exile, a place where real transformation happens not just in myths and legends but in your life too. Think about it, cast-out heroes are the ones that come back wielding wisdom like a sword. And then there's a deeper significance to this scapegoat role. It's not merely about bearing the brunt, it's about awakening and evolving. Instead of just being the family's shadow filler, you can turn that shadow into brilliant light. So, if you felt misunderstood or unwelcome, hear this. You're not the problem your family painted you to be. No, you've seen things others chose to ignore and felt emotions they couldn't handle. Your experiences have armed you with a rare depth and resilience that no one can snatch away. Being the scapegoat can be your past, but it doesn't have to dictate your future. You can choose to transform that hurt into wisdom, forge genuine connections, and begin to express yourself freely. Imagine no longer being the reflection of someone else's negativity but shining as your own beacon of light. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the real gem that comes from being a scapegoat. You're intimately aware of what it's like to shoulder burdens that aren't yours, which eventually teaches you the liberating power of letting go. So if this resonates with you, consider this your call to action. It's your time to rewrite the script and ditch the heavy, unwanted labels. Step boldly into the life that was always meant for you. Here's the heart of the matter. You're not the problem. You're a wave of possibilities waiting to crash upon the shores of your true self. The world around you doesn't need you to carry that blame any longer. No, it's clamoring for you to break free and become the vibrant, authentic person you were destined to be.